The emergency lights were flashing red across every corridor of Station Nexus Prime when Ambassador Lyra of the Velanthi Dominion rushed into the council chamber. She had never seen the station in such chaos. Diplomats from a dozen different species were running through the hallways, their faces filled with terror. Something terrible had happened. And Lyra could feel the fear in the recycled air of the station. The council chamber was already filling with holographic representatives from across the galaxy. Lyra counted 12 different civilizations, each one sending their highest-ranking officials. The Moravian Collective had sent Counselor Thren, whose crystalline body was pulsing with nervous energy. The Dominion had sent Ambassador Crix, his insectoid mandibles clicking rapidly as he processed incoming data. Even the reclusive Fenari had sent a representative, which told Lyra that whatever was happening was truly serious. High Mediator Zolvan stood at the center of the chamber, his four eyes blinking in a pattern that indicated extreme stress. He was an old creature, nearly 800 years by human counting, and he had guided the council through many crises. But Lyra had never seen him look so afraid. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Zolvan began, his voice trembling slightly. "I wish I had better news to share. Our long-range sensors have confirmed what we feared most. The Korthak swarm has awakened." Collective gasp filled the chamber. Lyra felt her heart skip a beat. The Korthaks were the stuff of nightmares, ancient stories told to frighten children. They were a species of biomechanical locusts that traveled between stars, consuming everything in their path. Entire civilizations had fallen to their hunger. Worlds that had once been paradise were now nothing but barren rocks, stripped of every resource, every trace of life. "They breached the Outer Rim territories 17 cycles ago," Zolvan continued. "The Polari system was their first target. 7 billion Polari lived there. None survived. The swarm consumed everything, the people, the cities, even the oceans. When they left, there was nothing but dust." Counselor Thren's crystal form flickered with distress. The Polari had strong defenses. They had orbital platforms, planetary shields. How could they fall so quickly? "The swarm adapts," Crix answered, his voice cold and analytical. "They learn from every battle. Every weapon used against them becomes useless in the next engagement. The Polari defenses held for 9 days. Then the swarm found weaknesses and exploited them. By day 10, there were no more transmissions from Pelari Prime." Zolvan activated a holographic map of the galaxy. A red line traced the path of the swarm from the outer rim toward the core systems. After Polari, they moved to the Fenwick colonies. Those worlds fell even faster. The swarm is growing with each conquest, adding the biomass of consumed worlds to their numbers. Our best estimates suggest they now number in the billions of vessels. "Where are they heading now?" Lyra asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Zolvan zoomed in on a small yellow star near the edge of the map. "Their trajectory has been calculated with 98% certainty. They are heading directly for the Sol system." Silence fell over the chamber. Sol, the home system of humanity. The young species that had only achieved faster than light traveled 3 centuries ago. They had been granted provisional membership in the Council just 50 years prior, a gesture that many of the elder races had considered premature. Humans were clever, certainly. They were resourceful and adaptable, but they were technological infants compared to the ancient civilizations represented in this chamber. "We must warn them," Thren said, his crystalline voice ringing with urgency. "They deserve to know what is coming. Perhaps they can evacuate some of their population." "Evacuate to where?" Crix responded with cruel logic. "The swarm follows biological signatures. They can track prey across hundreds of light years. Running only delays the inevitable. If the humans flee, the swarm will simply follow them and consume whatever worlds they flee to. Then we must help them fight," Lyra said. "We have fleets. We have weapons. Together, we might be able to stop the swarm." Zolvan shook his head slowly. "The Council has already discussed this option. A vote was taken before this session began. The decision was unanimous. We cannot risk our military forces against the swarm. No civilization has ever defeated them in open battle. Sending our fleets to Sol would only add to the casualties without changing the outcome." Lyra felt anger rising in her chest. "So we just let them die?" 28 billion humans live in the Sol system. 28 billion people, and we are going to abandon them. We are going to give them a chance to save who they can, Zalvin replied. The Council has voted to provide humanitarian aid for evacuation efforts. Transport ships, supplies, whatever they need to save as many lives as possible. But military intervention is not an option. The chamber fell into uneasy silence. Lyra looked around at her fellow representatives and saw guilt on many faces. They all knew this decision was wrong. They all knew they were condemning an entire species to death. But fear had won over conscience. The Korthax were too powerful, too ancient, too terrifying to face. I will contact the human delegation personally, Lyra finally said. They deserve to hear this from someone who actually cares about their fate. She left the chamber without waiting for permission. The corridors of Station Nexus Prime felt colder than usual as she made her way to the communication center. She thought about the humans she had met over the years. They were strange creatures, full of contradictions. They could be violent and gentle, selfish and generous, foolish and brilliant. They laughed easily and loved deeply. They did not deserve what was coming on Earth. In the sprawling headquarters of the United Earth Defense Initiative in Geneva, Admiral Patricia Holloway was reviewing routine reports when the priority transmission arrived. She was a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belt, negotiated with hostile alien delegations, and buried too many friends over her long career. But nothing had prepared her for what Ambassador Lyra was about to tell her. Patricia listened to the warning without interruption. Her face remained calm, expressionless, as Lyra described the swarm and its approach. She asked only one question when the ambassador finished speaking. How long until they arrive? Approximately 47 standard days, Lyra replied. Her elongated face was filled with something that looked almost like pity. Admiral Holloway, I am so sorry. I argued for military support, but the Council refused. They are afraid. We all are. The Korthax have never been defeated. Every species that has faced them has been destroyed. Patricia nodded slowly. I understand, Ambassador. Please convey our gratitude to the Council for the warning. Every hour we have to prepare is valuable. Lyra seemed surprised by the calm response. Admiral, you do understand what I'm telling you. The swarm has billions of vessels. They have destroyed civilizations far older and more advanced than humanity. This is not a battle you can win. I heard you clearly, Ambassador. Patricia's voice was steady and cold. Is there anything else? I suppose not. May whatever gods you believe in watch over your people, Admiral Holloway. The transmission ended. Patricia sat motionless for a long moment, staring at the blank screen. Then, slowly, a small smile crossed her face. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for something. For a very long time, she reached for her secure communication line and entered a code that only 7 people on Earth knew existed. Get me, Director. Coleman, she said when the line connected. Tell him it is time. We are opening the vault. She stood and walked to her window, looking out at the peaceful city of Geneva below. People were going about their daily lives, unaware that death was racing toward them across the stars. In 47 days, everything would change, but not in the way the galaxy expected, not in the way the Council assumed. For 300 years, humanity had been hiding something. For 300 years, they had been preparing. And now, finally, it was time to show the universe what humans were truly capable of. Patricia Holloway watched the sun set over the mountains and felt something she had not felt in years. Not fear, not despair, anticipation. The storm was coming. Humanity was ready. The Korthax swarm moved through the darkness of space like a river of death. Billions of vessels traveled together, their biomechanical bodies pulsing with a hunger that had driven them across the galaxy for 10,000 years. The smallest ships were the size of fighters, quick and deadly, with sharp claws designed to tear through hull plating. The largest were hive ships, massive creatures that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, carrying millions of smaller vessels inside, their bodies like parasites. The swarm did not think in the way other species understood thinking. They shared a single mind, a vast consciousness that connected every vessel through quantum entanglement. When one ship saw something, every ship saw it. When one ship learned something, every ship learned it. This was what made them so dangerous. This was why no civilization had ever defeated them. At Station Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council watched the swarm's progress through long-range sensors. The images were terrifying. A cloud of living ships so dense that it blocked out the stars behind it. A plague of metal and flesh that consumed everything it touched. The humans are not evacuating, Counselor Thren observed during one of their daily monitoring sessions. Our transport ships report minimal civilian traffic leaving the Sol system. Do they not understand what is coming? Perhaps they have accepted their fate, Ambassador Crick suggested. Some species choose dignity over futile resistance. They may be preparing to die with honor. Lyra shook her head slowly. No, I have studied humans for decades. I have read their history and their literature. I have spoken with their diplomats and their soldiers. Acceptance is not in their nature. They are planning something. Planning what? Crix clicked his mandibles in annoyance. They have perhaps 200 warships in their entire fleet. Most of those are patrol vessels designed to fight pirates. The swarm has billions of ships. What could they possibly be planning that would make any difference? Lyra did not have an answer. But deep in her heart, she felt something strange. It was almost like hope. On Earth, something unprecedented was happening. Across every continent, military personnel were receiving classified orders. Scientists were being called back from vacation. Engineers were reporting to facilities that did not appear on any map. The greatest secret in human history was about to be revealed. Director Samuel Coleman stood at the entrance to a tunnel that led deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. He was a man in his 70s, thin and gray, with the tired eyes of someone who had carried a heavy burden for too long. He had spent his entire adult life protecting this secret. Now, finally, he would see if those decades of work had been worth it. Admiral Patricia Holloway arrived exactly on schedule. She stepped out of her transport and approached Samuel with the confident stride of a warrior. "Director Coleman," she said, "I never thought this day would actually come." "Neither did I, Admiral." "Neither did I." Samuel turned and gestured toward the tunnel. "Follow me. It is time you saw what we have been building." They walked together into the darkness. The tunnel was long and featureless, carved directly through solid rock. Every 100 meters they passed through a security checkpoint manned by soldiers whose official records listed them as deceased. These men and women had given up their identities, their families, their entire lives to protect what lay ahead. After first contact 300 years ago, Samuel began as they walked. The founders of the initiative made a decision. The galaxy was full of dangers we could not imagine. Ancient civilizations with technologies far beyond our own, species that viewed humanity as nothing more than insects. Potential threats that could destroy us before we even knew they existed. They passed through another checkpoint. The guards saluted but said nothing. "So we did what humans have always done when faced with the unknown," Samuel continued. "We prepared for the worst. We smiled and played the role of the humble newcomer. We accepted their technology and signed their treaties. We let them believe we were children stumbling through the darkness of space." The tunnel opened into a cavern so massive that Patricia stopped walking and simply stared. The ceiling was so high that clouds had formed near it. Lights as bright as small suns illuminated a space that could have held a city. And filling that space, row after row after row, were warships Patricia had served in the official Earth Defense Fleet for 40 years. She knew every vessel in human service. She had memorized their specifications, their capabilities, their weaknesses. But she did not recognize a single ship in this cavern. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, sleek and angular, with hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapon systems bristled from every surface, strange geometries that hurt to look at directly. These were not ships designed for patrol or defense. These were ships designed for one purpose only: war. "We built everything," Samuel said quietly. "Every theoretical weapon system our scientists ever dreamed up. Every defensive technology that seemed impossible, quantum resonance cannons that can erase matter from existence, void shields that deflect energy into other dimensions, reality anchors that prevent enemies from using faster-than-light travel to escape. Patricia counted the ships she could see. Over 1,000 capital vessels, each one larger than anything in the official fleet. Countless smaller craft filled the spaces between them. This was not a defense force. This was an armada. How? She finally managed to ask, "How did you hide all of this?" "The resources alone would have bankrupted every nation on Earth." Samuel smiled sadly. "We have had 300 years, Admiral. 300 years of secret budgets and hidden facilities. 300 years of our best minds working in absolute secrecy. Some of them lived their entire lives down here, never seeing the sun, never telling their families what they were doing. They sacrificed everything because they believed that someday something would come for humanity, something that would require everything we had to stop. And you kept this from the Council. The Council is not our friend, Patricia. None of them are. They see us as children to be managed at best, competitors to be contained at worst. If they knew what we were truly capable of, they would have destroyed us long before we were ready." Patricia walked toward the nearest ship. She placed her hand on its hull and felt something like static electricity tingle against her palm. The metal was warm, almost alive. "What are they called?" she asked. "This class is designated Revenant. The flagship is called Constellation. There are 17 different ship classes in total, each designed for specific combat roles." Samuel joined her beside the ship. "We have trained crews for all of them. Men and women who have been preparing for this moment their entire careers. They are ready, Admiral. The only question is whether you are ready to lead them." Patricia turned to face him. "The swarm is coming. 28 billion lives depend on what we do in the next 47 days. I have been ready for this my entire life." Samuel nodded slowly. "Then let me introduce you to your fleet." They walked deeper into the cavern, past ships that should not exist, past weapons that defied the laws of physics, past 300 years of humanity's greatest secret. Above them, the stars were filling with death. The swarm was coming, hungry and unstoppable. But humanity was no longer afraid. For the first time in 3 centuries, they were going to show the galaxy what they truly were. Not children. Not newcomers. Not the humble species begging for scraps at the table of elder civilizations. They were humanity. They had faced extinction before and survived. They had fought against impossible odds and won. And now, with ships that could tear reality itself apart, they were going to face the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. The swarm thought they were coming to consume a helpless prey. They were wrong. They were coming to their own destruction. The Korthak swarm entered the Sol system on the 42nd day. They came through the outer reaches like a dark cloud, their numbers so vast that they blocked the distant light of other stars. Sensors across the solar system screamed warnings as billions of enemy vessels poured through the void toward the inner planets. The hive mind that controlled the swarm registered the human presence immediately. 28 billion biological signatures spread across Earth, Mars, and the orbital habitats. So much food. So much biomass to add to the swarm. The hive mind felt something that might have been anticipation. This would be a great feeding in 10,000 years of expansion across the galaxy. The Korthaks had never encountered meaningful resistance. Species fought back, certainly. They always did. But their weapons became useless within days as the swarm adapted. Their defenses crumbled under the weight of billions. Their hope turned to despair as they realized that nothing could stop the hunger that had come for them. The humans would be no different. The hive mind had studied them through captured data networks. A young species. Primitive by galactic standards. Their largest warships were tiny things, barely worth noticing. This would not even be a battle. It would be a harvest. The swarm passed Neptune and continued inward. They passed Uranus without slowing. The inner system lay before them, rich and ripe and helpless. Then something strange happened. A single ship emerged from behind Pluto. It was small by Korthak standards. It's barely 2 kilometers in length. Its hull was dark and angular, almost invisible against the blackness of space. The swarm registered it as a curiosity. One ship against billions? Perhaps the humans were attempting to negotiate. Perhaps they wanted to offer surrender. Captain Daniel Price stood on the bridge of the Revenant and watched the swarm approach on his tactical display. He was a man in his 40s with a calm face and steady hands. He had trained for this moment for 20 years, running simulations, studying tactics, preparing himself to fight an enemy that most humans did not even know existed. His crew worked silently around him. 57 men and women, each one the best at their job, each one knowing that they might not survive the next few hours. None of them showed fear. They had volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. They believed in what they were doing. "Weapons status," Daniel said quietly. "Quantum resonance cannon charged and ready," Captain replied his weapons officer, Lieutenant Hannah Morris. "Void shields at maximum. All systems operating within normal parameters." Daniel nodded. "Open a channel to command." The face of Admiral Patricia Holloway appeared on his screen. She was aboard the Constellation, still hidden with the rest of the fleet, waiting for the signal. "Captain Price," Patricia said. "Status report. The swarm has entered sensor range, Admiral. Approximately 4 billion vessels confirmed, with more arriving every minute. They are moving in standard consumption formation, hive ships protected by layers of fighters and support craft, and your crew." Daniel looked around his bridge at the faces of his people. Hannah at weapons. Christopher Blake at navigation. Maria Santos at communications. All of them ready. All of them willing to give everything for the mission. "We are ready, Admiral. Permission to engage." "What?" Patricia's face was hard as stone. "Permission granted, Captain. Show them what humanity can do." The channel closed. Daniel turned back to his tactical display and studied the approaching swarm. Billions of ships. An enemy that had destroyed civilizations far older and more powerful than humanity. An enemy that had never been defeated. Today, that would change. "Helm, take us to attack position," Daniel ordered. "Weapons. Target the lead hive ship. Fire when ready." The Revenant surged forward on engines that bent the laws of physics. It accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible, crossing the distance to the swarm in seconds rather than hours. The Korthax detected the approach but did not react. Why would they? One small ship posed no threat to them. Hannah. Maurice pressed the firing control. The quantum resonance cannon discharged a beam of pure, white energy that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. It struck the lead hive ship, a massive creature 300 kilometers long, filled with millions of smaller vessels waiting to be released. The hive ship did not explode. It did not break apart. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a mountain of biomechanical horror that had consumed dozens of worlds. The next moment there was nothing. Not debris, not energy signatures, just empty space where the ship had been. The swarm stopped moving. For the first time in recorded history, the Korthax hesitated. The hive mind tried to process what had happened. One of its largest vessels had been erased from existence by a weapon that should not exist. This was not possible. This did not fit any pattern the swarm had ever encountered. At Station Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council watched through long-range sensors. The chamber was completely silent. Every representative stared at the display with expressions of pure disbelief. What was that? Counselor Thren finally managed to ask, "That weapon is not in any database. The energy signature does not match any known technology. It should not be possible." Ambassador Lyra leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the small human ship, now diving directly into the swarm. "It would appear that we have significantly underestimated the humans." The Revenant did not wait for the swarm to recover. Daniel Price pushed his ship deeper into enemy formation, void shields flickering as thousands of Korthax fighters tried to engage. Wherever the Revenant passed, quantum fire erased enemy vessels from existence. Hundreds of ships died in seconds, then thousands. But one ship, however powerful, could not stop billions. The swarm adapted. It always adapted. The hive mind split its forces into countless smaller formations, overwhelming the Revenant from every direction at once. The void shields held against most attacks, but slowly, inevitably, damage began to accumulate. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Christopher reported. "Shields down to 60%. They are learning our attack patterns." Daniel watched as more and more enemy ships surrounded them. His weapons were devastating, but he could not fire in every direction at once. The swarm was sacrificing millions of its smaller vessels to probe his defenses, learning, adapting, finding weaknesses. "Revenant to command," Daniel transmitted. "They have adapted to our weapons profile faster than expected. Our shields will fail in approximately 15 minutes. Beginning Phase 2. On the constellation, Patricia Holloway closed her eyes for a moment. She knew what Phase 2 meant. She had approved the plan herself. That did not make it easier. Understood, Captain Price. Godspeed. Daniel turned to his crew. They all knew what was coming. They had all volunteered for this. He saw no regret in their faces, only determination. "It has been an honor serving with all of you," he said. The Revenant's engines flared to maximum power. The ship turned toward the densest concentration of swarm vessels, where dozens of hive ships clustered together and accelerated to impossible speed. The Korthax tried to evade. They were too slow. Daniel Price closed his eyes and thought of his husband, Kevin. Waiting for news back on Mars. He thought of Earth, the world he would never see again. He thought of the billions of people depending on what happened in the next few seconds. The quantum core. Overloaded. A sphere of pure white light expanded outward from the Revenant. It grew larger and larger, catching nearly 2 million swarm vessels in its radius. When it finally collapsed, those ships were gone. Not destroyed, not damaged. Simply removed from existence as if they had never been. The Revenant and her crew vanished with them. At his station on Mars, Lieutenant Commander Kevin Price watched his husband's ship disappear from the tactical display. He stared at the empty space where Daniel had been for 3 long seconds. He allowed himself that much time for grief. Then he wiped his eyes and returned to his duties. Daniel had done his part. He had bought them time and shown the swarm that humanity would not die quietly. Now, it was up to the rest of them to finish what he had started. The real battle was about to begin. The destruction of the Revenant bought humanity 12 precious hours. The swarm had lost nearly 2 million vessels in a single instant, and the hive mind needed time to process what had happened. For 10,000 years, no prey had ever struck back with such devastating force. The Korthax did not feel fear exactly, but they felt something close to confusion. They regrouped beyond the orbit of Neptune, pulling their scattered formations back together. The hive mind analyzed the weapon that had destroyed so many of its children. It was unlike anything in its memory. A weapon that did not merely damage or destroy, but erase matter from existence itself. The swarm would need to adapt. It would need new tactics. But it still numbered in the billions. One ship had hurt them badly, but one ship was gone now. The harvest would continue. Then the human fleet arrived. They emerged from hidden bases throughout the solar system. Ships rose from beneath the frozen oceans of Europa. They launched from caverns on the dark side of Luna. They poured out of installations buried deep in the asteroid belt. For 300 years, humanity had been building in secret. And now that secret was finally revealed. Admiral Patricia Holloway stood on the bridge of the constellation and watched her fleet assemble around her. Over 5,000 warships of varying classes, each one carrying weapons that the galaxy believed impossible. The smallest were fast attack frigates, quick and deadly. The largest were dreadnoughts like her own flagship, 12 kilometers of armored hull and devastating firepower. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral," said Commander Lisa Grant, her tactical officer. "Fleet formation complete. The swarm is holding position beyond Neptune." Patricia nodded slowly. She thought of Daniel Price and the crew of the Revenant, 58 brave souls who had given everything to, by this moment. She would not let their sacrifice be wasted. "Open a channel to all ships," she ordered. The communication officer activated the fleet-wide broadcast. Patricia took a deep breath and spoke. All ships, this is Admiral Holloway. For 300 years, humanity has hidden in the shadows. We have smiled and bowed to elder races who thought us children. We have pretended to be weak when we were strong. We have waited and prepared for the day when something would come to threaten our existence. She paused, looking at the tactical display showing billions of enemy vessels. That day has arrived. The Korthax swarm has consumed civilizations far older than ours. They have destroyed worlds beyond counting. The galaxy believes we cannot win this fight. The galaxy is wrong. Her voice grew harder, colder, filled with a fury that had been building for centuries. Today we show the universe what humanity truly is. We are not children. We are not newcomers begging for scraps. We are survivors. We are fighters. We have stared into the darkness and refused to look away. We have faced extinction before and overcome it. Today we face it again, and today we will overcome it again. She clenched her fist. The swarm thinks we are prey. Let us show them what happens when prey fights back. All ships, advance. May God have mercy on our enemies, because we will not. The human fleet surged forward like a spear thrown at the heart of the swarm. 5,000 ships accelerated to combat speed, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. The Korthax saw them coming and responded with billions of their own vessels. A wave of death that should have been unstoppable. The two forces met near the orbit of Uranus. The battle that followed would later be remembered. As the 7 Hours War, human ships tore in two. The swarm with weapons that defied belief. Quantum resonance cannons erased enemy vessels by the thousands. Void shields deflected attacks that should have been devastating. Reality anchors activated across the battlefield, preventing the Korthax from using their faster-than-light capabilities to escape or reposition. The swarm fought back with everything it had. Billions of fighters swarmed human ships, trying to overwhelm their defenses through sheer numbers. Hive ships unleashed devastating biological weapons that ate through hull plating. The Korthax adapted constantly, learning from every exchange, finding new ways to attack. Human ships began to fall. The frigate Defiance was the first to die, overwhelmed by a concentrated assault from 3 different directions. The cruiser Valor followed minutes later, its void shields failing under sustained bombardment. The destroyer Hope was rammed by a hive ship 10 times its size, both vessels disappearing in a ball of fire. Patricia watched her fleet shrinking on the tactical display. They were winning, killing enemy ships at a ratio of thousands to 1, but the swarm had billions to spare. Simple mathematics said that humanity would run out of ships before the Korthax ran out of bodies. Admiral Lisa reported, her voice tight with stress. They are adapting faster than our projections estimated. At current loss rates, our fleet will be overwhelmed in approximately 4 hours. Patricia studied the tactical display with cold eyes. The swarm had begun concentrating its forces around the remaining hive ships, sacrificing countless smaller vessels to protect those massive command creatures. She understood the strategy. The hive ships were the key to the swarm's coordination. As long as they survived, the Korthax could replace their losses and continue fighting forever. What is the status of Project Genesis? Patricia asked. Director Samuel Coleman's face appeared on her screen. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, but his voice was steady. The device is ready, Admiral. We have loaded it onto a stealth carrier. But I must warn you, we only have one. If it fails, we have no backup plan. It will not fail. Patricia turned to her helmsman. Set course for the primary hive cluster. Maximum speed. Admiral, that will take us directly through the densest part of the swarm. I know. All ships form up on Constellation. We are ending this now. The human fleet reformed into a tight spear formation with the Constellation at its tip. They drove forward into the heart of the swarm, cutting through layers of defenders like a blade through flesh. Ships fell on both sides. The frigate Courage exploded under concentrated fire. The cruiser Justice took a direct hit to its engine core and went dark. But the formation held, pushing deeper and deeper into enemy territory. The Korthax threw everything at them. Millions of fighters, Dozens of hive ships, biological weapons that turned the void into a poisonous hell. Human ships died by the dozens, and by the hundreds. But they did not stop. They could not stop. The constellation reached the heart of the swarm. A cluster of the largest hive ships floated there, the command center of the entire Korthax force. Patricia could see them on her view screen. Mountains of flesh and metal that had consumed worlds beyond counting. "Launch the Genesis device," she ordered. A small craft, detached from the constellation's hull. It was barely visible, designed for stealth rather than combat. It slipped through the chaos of battle, past burning ships and dying creatures. Heading directly for the center of the hive cluster, the Korthax did not notice it until... Too late, the Genesis device activated. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It did not explode or burn or destroy. Instead, it broadcast a signal, carefully crafted frequency that disrupted the quantum entanglement connecting every Korthax vessel to the hive mind. The effect was immediate and devastating. One moment. Billions of swarm vessels operated as a single entity, coordinated and unified. The next moment, there were billions of individual creatures, suddenly and completely alone for the first time in their existence. The swarm went insane. Ships that had been working together began attacking each other in confusion. Hive vessels lost control of their internal systems and tore themselves apart. Fighters crashed into friendly targets, unable to distinguish ally from enemy. The great armada that had consumed 100 worlds dissolved into chaos in the span of seconds. Patricia Holloway allowed herself one moment of relief. Then she gave her final order. "All ships, finish them. Leave nothing alive." The human fleet did not show mercy. They hunted down every remaining swarm vessel, ensuring that none escaped to regenerate the threat. It took 3 more hours of brutal combat, but when it was over, the Korthax swarm was extinct. 10,000 years of terror ended in a single day at the hands of a species. The galaxy had dismissed as children, humanity had won. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Korthax swarm, the ancient terror that had haunted civilizations for 10,000 years, was gone. Destroyed completely in a single battle by a species that most of the galaxy had considered primitives. Every world with access to communication networks heard the story. Every species with ears to listen learned what had happened in the Sol system. Humanity had done the impossible. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the most heavily attended in its long history. Every member species sent their highest-ranking representatives. Ambassadors who had not left their homeworlds in centuries made the journey to Station Nexus Prime. The chamber hummed with tension and barely hidden fear as delegates took their seats. Ambassador Lyra of the Velanthe Dominion stood at the central podium, preparing to introduce humanity's representative. She had spent the past 3 days reviewing intelligence reports and trying to understand how everything she knew about humans had been so wrong. The young species she had pitied was gone. In its place stood something far more dangerous. The doors of the chamber opened, and Admiral Patricia Holloway walked in. She wore her dress uniform, medals gleaming on her chest, each one representing a battle the galaxy had never known about. She moved through the chamber with the quiet confidence of someone who no longer had anything to prove. Every eye in the room followed her as she approached the podium. High Mediator Zalvin rose to greet her. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme nervousness. "Admiral Holloway," he began, his voice carefully controlled. "The Council has many questions regarding humanity's recent actions. I am certain you do." Patricia activated a holographic display showing the Sol system. For 300 years, humanity presented itself as a developing species, eager to learn from our elder neighbors. We accepted your technological gifts. We signed treaties limiting our expansion. We played the role of the humble newcomer perfectly. She paused, letting her words sink in. This was a strategic deception. Murmurs filled the chamber. Patricia continued without acknowledging them.
When we first encountered the wider galaxy, we did not know what to expect. We did not know if the civilizations we met would be friends or enemies. History had taught us that hoping for the best was a good way to end up dead. So we prepared for the worst. We studied your technologies and developed our own in secret. We built weapons and defenses beyond anything you believed possible. We created a fleet capable of defending our species against any threat. You lied to us, Counselor Crix accused, his mandibles clicking with anger. For 3 centuries, you deceived this council. Patricia turned to face him directly. We survived. That is what humans do, Counselor. We survive. We adapt. We overcome. The Korthax discovered this truth. Any who threaten our species in the future will discover it as well. The threat hung in the air, unspoken but perfectly clear. High Mediator Zolvin leaned forward. What does humanity want, Admiral? You have demonstrated power beyond anything we anticipated. Your fleet destroyed the greatest threat this galaxy has ever known in a matter of hours. You could conquer us all if you chose. So what do you want? Patricia's expression softened slightly. We do not want conquest. We never did. We want what we have always wanted. To live in peace. To explore the stars. To build a future for our children. But we will not be treated as inferiors any longer. We will not be managed or contained or patronized. We are equals now, whether this council accepts it or not. She paused again, letting the silence stretch. The Korthax are gone. A threat that terrorized this galaxy for 10,000 years was eliminated in 7 hours. Humanity did what no other species could do. We did what no other species even attempted. We ask nothing in return except respect and recognition of what we have achieved. The council deliberated for 6 hours. Delegates argued and debated and threatened. Some demanded punishment for humanity's deception. Others pointed out that punishing humanity was no longer a realistic option. In the end, practicality won over pride. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and privileges. The old treaties limiting human expansion were dissolved. New agreements were drafted recognizing humanity as a major power in galactic affairs. A new era had begun. As Patricia left the chamber, Ambassador Lyra intercepted her in the corridor. You could have told us, the Valanthi said quietly. We might have helped you. We might have stood with you against the swarm. Patricia smiled sadly. Could we have trusted you? Would you have believed us capable of what we claimed? Would you have kept our secret? Or would you have reported us to the council as a threat to be contained? Lyra had no answer. No, Ambassador. This was the only way. Humanity had to prove itself through action, not words. We had to show the galaxy what we could do, not just tell them. And now? Lyra asked. What happens now? Patricia looked out at the stars visible through the station's viewport. Now we move forward. Together, hopefully. The galaxy is vast, and there are threats out there that make the Korthax look like nothing. If we stand together, we can face them. If not, humanity will survive regardless. We always do. She walked away, leaving Lyra alone with her thoughts. On Earth, the celebrations continued for weeks. Cities that had prepared for evacuation threw parties instead. People danced in the streets, raised glasses to the sky, and wept with relief. The shadow that had hung over them was gone. They were alive. They were free. They had won, but amid the celebrations there was also mourning. Memorial services were held across the planet for the fallen. 47,000 soldiers had died in the battle. 312 ships had been destroyed. Each loss was felt deeply, each name remembered. The largest memorial was held in Geneva, outside the headquarters of the United Earth Defense Initiative. A wall of black granite was erected, bearing the names of every man and woman who had given their life. At the top of the list was Captain Daniel Price and the crew of the Revenant. Lieutenant Commander Kevin Price stood before the wall, his hand pressed against his husband's name. He had not slept in days. He had not eaten. He had simply stood here, remembering the man he had loved and lost. Admiral Patricia Holloway found him there on the 3rd day. He saved us all, she said quietly, standing beside him. The Revenant's sacrifice bought us the time we needed. Without him, without his crew, we would have lost. Kevin nodded slowly. He knew he was not coming back. He told me before he left. He said that some things were worth dying for. He said protecting our future was the most important thing he could do. He was right. Kevin finally turned away from the wall. His eyes were red, but his voice was steady. What happens now, Admiral? The swarm is gone. The secret is out. What does humanity do next? Patricia considered the question. For 3 centuries, humanity had lived in fear of discovery. They had hidden their true nature behind a mask of humility. That era was over now. The mask was gone. The galaxy would never see them the same way again. Now we become what we were always meant to be, she said. Not the students. Not the newcomers. Not the children stumbling through the darkness. She looked up at the stars becoming visible in the evening sky. Somewhere out there, other species were watching, wondering what humanity would do next. Some feared them. Some admired them. All of them understood that the galaxy had changed forever. Now humanity takes its place among the stars, Patricia said. And we make sure that no one ever threatens our home again? Kevin nodded slowly. He took one last look at Daniel's name on the wall, then turned and walked away. There was work to be done. A future to build. A legacy to honor. Behind him, the stars continued to shine. The darkness of space stretched on forever, full of wonders and dangers beyond imagination. But humanity was no longer afraid of that darkness. They had faced the worst the galaxy could throw at them and won. They had proved themselves worthy of their place among the stars. And whatever came next, whatever new challenges awaited them, they would face those challenges together. Humanity had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same.